And now to Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force on Saturday said it intercepted 319 drones and 25 cruise missiles, while hundreds of decoys were jammed. 2 people died and 26 were wounded when Russian forces overnight attacked the Bukovina area, southwestern Ukraine, with 4 drones and a missile, Regional Governor Russian Zabarunyk said. He said that the 2 died from falling drone debris. Well, joining me now to discuss the top stories around the world is Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. He is live from London. Good to have you tonight on The World. Now, one word we have been hearing from the start of this Gaza issue is Rafah, Rafah, Rafah. There seems to be a plan. In fact, there are reports, Marek, that satellite imagery, leaked documents and government statements all point to the creation of a concentration zone in Gaza, and that the destruction of, parts of Rafah by Israel is deliberate and is part of that plan to take over, Gaza.
Yes, it would appear to be the case that Israel is no longer thinking in terms of either, of course, assimilating the Gazans or a 2-state solution or any sort of solution along those lines, but is now working on the plan of simply having the Gazans voluntarily leave, whether this is by coercion in the sense that everything is destroyed around them and they're being slowly whittled down, if one might put it like that, by constant attacks when they're seeking aid, which, of course, kill some people literally every day, or whether they might well be persuaded simply to want to leave, is yet to be seen. Please note that this is actually how the Nazis saw the solution to what they called the Jewish problem in their days, that prior to death camps being set up, there was a plan of settling the Jews out east. Unfortunately, failed campaign in their war with Russia stopped this. We're now at the phase again with the Gazans facing this sort of possibility of being relocated by coercion or by persuasion. There's no statement at present of them being forced to do so. So we're still not at that stage. However, there does seem to be a plan. Yes, it is a plan which has been condemned insofar as it is known by the international community. There is at present no obvious place for them to go to. And so this is the state of play at present, which of course is worrying many Gazans.
Now, can we say for, sure that the US is aware of this plan by Israel?
Yeah, everyone's aware of this plan now. I mean, it's quite openly discussed. However, what is lacking is the official part of it by the Israelis and presumably by the Americans who are supporting this. What is happening is, if you like, it is still not being a total plan put forward because at present, and this is the key point, Hamas and Israel are still actually negotiating a ceasefire. And so therefore, this plan is, if you like, formal in the sense it exists, but still unofficial in the sense it's not being implemented. It is not actually a plan which is the official plan because of the negotiation proposals.
Let me bring your attention to what Netanyahu said just a few days ago. He talked about being uncomfortable with the terms mentioned by Hamas in the 60 days deal. This negotiation is a clear in sight because while that is ongoing, Israel is not comfortable with accepting to Hamas's conditions.
Well, this is nothing new. Hamas and Israel obviously don't like each other's conditions. That's why they're negotiating. And the fact he's uncomfortable is because he accepted the notion of a ceasefire, is now signaling that he still is uncomfortable with the conditions, but then so is Hamas. The question is, can they arrive at some sort of deal? And unfortunately, all reports at present imply that this is not taking place because, to be quite honest, they're totally diametrically different goals. Hamas would like to see the IDF out of its territory and also humanitarian aid delivered by the UN. Israel wants the humanitarian aid delivered by this shadowy American group, and presumably so does America. And also, it does not want to leave all Hamas's territory, that is to say, Gaza. And so, and also, there's this shadowy plan of a concentration zone, as you called it, as well. So, at present, yes, there is. They're trying to put together a ceasefire in the sense both sides are negotiating, but it is not actually, as we stand right now, going to go ahead yet.
Now, since you mentioned the issue of humanitarian aid, the UN has condemned the food crisis in Gaza. And as you know, Israel has blocked, certain areas where food can reach Palestinians. There's also the issue with oil prices going up, leading to the UN spokesperson, Stephanie Dujarric, warning that more services will go dark unless restrictions are lifted immediately. It's complicated what is happening, Marek.
Yes, it is. It is actually like a gigantic, pardon the whole strategy, which areas receive what aid. And again, this is sort of has this shadowy implication of this concentration zone, of some zones being denied aid. Another aspect to it is this American organization has called for more areas to be now supplied by aid. And in effect, what we're looking at is, although Israel has let in aid, and setting aside the aspect that some people are killed by the ADF literally on a daily basis, the aid is getting through, but not everywhere. And it's part of this whole negotiation and the heart of the whole apparent strategy of Israel that has to be looked at, is where the aid is going. No easy solution yet to this point that Gazans will receive aid everywhere. That is not happening, but it seems to be another negotiation point.
Right. Now, let's switch to the issue of tariffs. Now, President Donald Trump has sent letters to more than 20 trading partners, that's the countries, threatening to impose blanket tariffs of 15 or 20% on most of them unless they reach a trade deal by the end of the month. That's beginning August. Now, Canada is facing a higher levy. Plus, there's a new one on the EU and Mexico having to face a 30% tariff on imports to the U.S. from August 1. What is your assessment?
Well, this shows that Donald Trump has not abandoned his strategy, which was his big, beautiful bill, tax cutting, so Americans have, if you like, the enticement of making money if they invest in the States, plus the big tariffs to make sure that no easy market exists for foreign competition, and that this will also, because the prices of foreign competition will go up, is all to entice Americans to invest in production in USA, and not just Americans, but foreign companies as well. This is all part of his strategy. He has not abandoned it. He is carrying forward. He, in fact, secured a minor success in this. Please note, the American government, for the first time ever, made a positive surplus because of the amount of money coming in from what tariffs, which are after result of his hiking them, have brought in. And therefore, to that extent, the policy is working, because slowly but surely all the foreign goods will be more expensive, and there is money from the tariffs, exactly as Donald Trump said there would be, coming into the economy. So far, Donald Trump is winning. The effect of higher prices is yet to feed through properly, and so therefore this negative aspect has not come through. It's true there's no great evidence of investment, but it's early days yet. So from these points of views, Donald Trump is going ahead. Where there is, I think here, a minor problem is that his tariff policy does come across as erratic, I think, to international observers. But then again, the Canadian Carney has also come across as a somewhat weak figure, because he's abandoned the digital services tax and seems to be agreeing with Donald Trump, which is, again, not what he said he would do when he was seeking power. And so therefore, if we're going to accuse Donald Trump, so is Carney, if you like, erratic in this point of view. And so therefore, Donald Trump at present is pursuing his strategy with a modicum of success.
It's interesting that you say that about, Carney, because Canada has recorded over 80,000 jobs, added to its economy since Trump took office, with 74%, according to, reports for manufacturing in the Canadian economy. Seems like they're faring well without the U.S.
Yeah, the important things to note is that not all the tariffs have kicked in around the world because that's hence the letters. It's important to note there's been a surge in Canada of patriotism. These effects in the short run have indeed produced the effect you've pointed out, which is good for Canada and good for Canada. And so, therefore, to that extent, yes, there has been some positive. We have yet to see the effects properly work through. And so we have yet to study the situation. One of the key points, I repeat, is Canada dropped its digital services tax, which is what Donald Trump has been angling for. And so from that point of view, there is negative for Canada, but a positive, the one you've mentioned, extra jobs. And we've yet to see what will happen both in the negotiations and for the Canadian economy in the near future. But it's not all doom and gloom for Carmi. Sure.
On Canada, let's bring in the EU and Mexico tariffs. First off, how does a tariff increase, reduce the importing of fentanyl, the drug, from getting into the country? One would think that it's better to impose stricter border measures than, blame it on the drug fentanyl.
To be quite honest, I don't see the tariffs linked in any way, obvious way, to this drug. What is really happening is that Donald Trump was looking for an excuse, and that's what his excuse is. It really is quite relevant. He could have said the sun was shining, and that's why he did it. The key point is that he's looking for excuse to increase tariffs, and so therefore bring about his resurgence of American industry. Remember, he's Make America Great Again. And therefore, this drug is nothing more than simply an excuse, to be honest.
So now, I know you remember the threat earlier when Donald Trump came into office, talking about the EU not turning to help, Canada. How would that impact the EU and, of course, Mexico?
Well, he's made many threats along these lines, but the EU and Canada and Mexico can get by to some degree without the USA. And as the USA is not going to go to war with them, then all that left with is Donald Trump are these threats. He can indeed, of course, raise tariffs still further. But then slowly but surely, everyone in Europe and Canada and Mexico has come to realize this, and they're planning accordingly. So yes, there will be some effect, but the threat is not as dire and as awesome as it sounded before.
Another thing is one, official in the Canadian, office or parliament talked about turning to other partners to, see how they can do business. If that happens, Trump says he's going to fire in with more, tariffs, especially EU, Canada, and Mexico. Before we touch on Russia and how the, resources in that region also affects all of this global conversation we're having.
Sure. Well, again, as I said, Donald Trump has threatened this, but he can't go to war with those countries. And all he's really got to offer as a threat is that he can raise tariffs still further. To be quite honest, they're high now, and the extra higher bit's not going to make that much difference. The key question is, can the EU, Canada, Mexico, and indeed other countries cope with a dead American market? And the answer is, well, yes, but of course, the live, open American market is much better. Certainly, it will cause some economic hardship to have America with high tariffs. Certainly, it results in less trade. But it's not going to kill these countries. And so to that extent, his threat, if you like, is not, as I said, as dire, as awesome as it would have been before. As for raw materials for America, yes, he's been angling for Ukraine, Russia, and incidentally Africa. All of them are where he seeks more raw materials for his economy in an effort to make sure that China has no leverage in terms of rare earths and other such materials or whatever over America.
Now, finally, there are also possible new sanctions on Russia by the U.S., as you heard earlier. These are the main countries with mineral resources. Now, does any sanction by the U.S. on Russia hold any weight?
Well, the answer is that Donald Trump has never really grasped that politics and economics are separate disciplines, and that therefore the art of the deal, as he put it, in business, which went well, does not actually work very well in politics for two reasons. Putting up on threatening very high tariffs and coming back down, which was a business ploy, actually comes across as erratic and strange in the political world, because rather than politics, people look for constancy and threatening figures like, for example, Stalin, because they actually went forward and did what they said, whereas this business of going up and down like a YOLO simply leaves it looking a bit erratic. And secondly, he cannot grasp the fact that in politics, what Putin sees is a threat to Russia of having Western armies who have invaded Russia time and again, depending how you define the West, but Poland, France, Germany in their time have invaded Russia, and incidentally, at one point, Great Britain considered it in the start of the Bolshevik War. And so the point I'm making is this is no room here for business deals. And to be quite honest, Russia is simply going to be unimpressed by sanctions, because if their very life is at stake, so what about some more sanctions? In any case, America has not actually reduced sanctions in any way. So I think President Putin is going to carry on going as he wishes about this war and simply ignoring America.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz, for joining us from London. He's an international affairs analyst.